Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bedpost Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Erin Pym. Here at the podcast, I like to invite guests and performers from my stage show that I run here in Toronto and beyond into the studio to have a more in-depth conversation about sex and sexuality with me. This week, I have a super sexy guest, sex educator Luna Matatas.
Yay.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be back on the show. It's very exciting.
Yeah, definitely. You're one of my favorite guests, repeat guests to have on the podcast. So
thank you.
I was so jazzed that we're having you back.
Me too.
And you're also on the, you're also one of my bedpost darlings that I like to have on the stage show as
I
well.
love being on the stage. Yeah. And I love bringing sex ed to the bar.
Yeah.
It's great.
Just bringing it to anywhere. Just anywhere around town. Just bringing it.
Yeah.
What are some of your... maybe for the people,
Yeah.
we can give them just a brief background of what type of sex education you do, maybe how you got into it a little bit.
Sure.
Perhaps?
Yeah. So I actually started teaching sex ed from a more public health kind of perspective. So I was working in Kenya and working in local communities here with teaching HIV prevention and sexually transmitted infections reduction, harm reduction, all that kind of stuff. And then I realized people were choosing pleasure a lot of the times over the associated risks that we were talking to them about. So I kind of did that as well. I still continued working for public health, but I wanted to launch workshops that actually responded to what people were doing behind closed doors. And it was fascinating because people are really interested. And if you bring people in through pleasure education, then you can still talk with them about risk and being safer and making emotional and physically safe choices.
That's amazing. And I love that because I feel like a lot of, definitely formal sex education that we get in schooling is not pleasure-based whatsoever. They don't even mention it.
Yeah. And it's a big problem, not only for a hedonistic kind of perspective, but I mean, a lot of the discussions we're seeing around Me Too and assault and consent, they can't happen if we're not talking about pleasure and what feels good and how do you articulate to someone that doesn't feel good or that does feel good.
Right. That's so interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective on that for sure. That you can't talk about the negatives if you don't also talk about the positives.
Totally.
There's this whole wide spectrum of things that happen during sex and between two private moments between two people in a bedroom. It's talking about all of it is going to give people the best kind of roundest education on it.
Yeah.
So what are things that you kind of tend to talk about nowadays, kind of in your pleasure-based type of sex education?
Funny enough, the first pleasure-based workshop I ever taught was on group sex.
Yes!
and surprisingly, it was the first time Good for Her was hosting something on group sex, and it was sold out.
Yeah.
People were very interested, very enthused, and I think just really happy to have a space where they could talk about something so taboo. Yes. I mean, who are you going to talk with it about? You're Googling, you're searching, you're coming across things that are inaccurate or not responsive to your particular identities or needs, so you're not getting the information you need.
Or porn that's just so
unrealistic.
Porn,
that
not
teaches
a great
us no connection.
tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not, it doesn't give us anything but sort of it's usually driven by a male desire point of view, and it's serving only one type of interest in sex.
Yeah. The person with the penis.
The person with the penis, yeah. So I want to broaden that. Because if there's another way for you to be turned on, wouldn't you want to know?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I love teaching things that are a little bit off-centered. And so thinking about kink and just more creative sex or more imaginative role play types of things. I teach other traditional things like oral sex from a more engaged perspective. So how do you really be responsive to your lover? Love teaching strap-on play, which we're going to talk about. I'm so excited.
That's one of the things on the list today. Yes.
Yeah. So those are some of the things I really enjoy teaching. I'm also looking into, I teach more basic BDSM. And I also teach more in-depth things that people might be curious about, but they're so niche that it's really hard to find information on, like water sports or pee play or things like that.
Yeah. And I feel like that definitely is something when I'm kind of looking through it, yesterday I was kind of looking through your social media just to see, some topics, some talking points for us today. Yeah. And all the things that you tend to, at least that I'm noticing that you tend to speak on or do workshops on are they're all interesting to me because it's not like the basic kind of workshops that you get. It's always something that's like a little different, you know, and that isn't super available. So I get why the talks that you do are so popular, because nobody is talking about the stuff that you talk about.
Yeah. And I'm not sure why.
Why?
Like, I don't know why more of us aren't talking about eating ass and face sitting and hand jobs and like, you know, and I think part of it is most of us didn't have this kind of sex ed. And so it's really hard to actually teach and make a living and find spaces that will host you for this type of sex ed. So we don't have like the support structures for a lot of educators to actually flourish teaching these kinds of things.
Yeah, like as a full-time gig.
Yeah.
Like a full-time job to
like
be a sex educator.
Hustlers. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to make it happen.
Yeah.
Because we'll talk about kind of the different platforms that you do speak on later. But O School is one of your main gigs. Is that correct to say?
Yeah. So O School is it's a shame-free pleasure education platform, and so we teach via live stream. And so you get a chance to like talk with the educators. You can like ask your questions. You can come in the chat, and it's a safe space because we have moderators. Yeah. So there's no trolls coming in being like, "Hey, baby." It's not. We're like cam girls, but without like being nude.
Yeah, from an
educational perspective, exactly. So we work for tips, and we provide. There's about like 40 educators. We live stream every day for at least 4 hours. So there's tons of stuff for people to access for free.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And we'll get all the links and stuff like that at the end of the episode.
Sure.
So let's get into it, girl.
All right.
One of our main things that we wanted to talk about. Let's start there, shall we? With strap-on fundamentals.
Yeah.
So strap-on sex. I love that we're talking about this because I've got a bit of show and tell as far as strap-on goes. You've got a bit of show and tell for some other things.
Some other stuff.
And also, strap-on fundamentals is the talk that you're going to do at the stage show at Bedpost this month, which I'm so excited about.
Me
so
too.
let's start there.
Okay.
Tell me about strap-on sex.
So lots of people think that strap-on sex is something that's like only for particular types of bodies, but like really anybody can strap it on. So whether you have a factory installed penis or you don't have a penis, you can strap it on. People strap it on for all different kinds of reasons. Sometimes people strap it on because they want to be the one penetrating. If they're the one traditionally receiving and getting their hole penetrated, then they want to experience what it's like to actually do the penetrating, do the giving. So it can be like a role reversal. Some people want an extra dick. So maybe you want 2 dicks so that you can play with like double penetration, or maintaining the length of an erection so that sex doesn't have to end when the penis is done. And some other people really like it because it gives an opportunity to kind of explore beyond just like P and V. So beyond like penis and vagina. So we can do penis and anus. We can do penis in vagina and anus at the same time. We can do all these different kinds of things by having like an extra thing. The great thing about strap-on play too, and I mean, you've got 2 harnesses that don't suit your pelvis, so you can actually strap on a dick anywhere. So you've got like the kick fucker.
Yeah. So let me show this off because this is one of my sponsors who I'll mention in the break today.
Yeah.
But this is a harness that fits on your foot or on your boot, and that is a cock ring. And this is where we can put a dildo here, so you can put it on your foot.
Yeah.
And then
call
another
it the
one,
kick fucker.
the kick fucker. Is that the official name?
No, I just call it that.
I keep saying that too, and I'm like, do they want me to say kick fucker?
I think they're okay with it. I don't know. I called that the Lunicorn.
Oh, you would.
I know.
So this is a leg strap-on, a thigh harness.
Yeah. Very sexy.
Oh, this color is everything.
It's so beautiful.
And same thing. You're putting a dick like somewhere different,
you know,
not on the pelvis.
And so visually it's more interesting, but also like having something on your foot or on your thigh actually gives you more thrusting power, because a lot of us who strap it on that don't have factory installed dicks, it's hard for us to learn the thrusting motion.
That's a great thing to
and
mention.
you get tired quickly. Whereas like someone could actually sit on this, someone could you've got more power coming from your thigh, so it's just a little bit easier on the person giving.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. What are some of the things? Are there some like tips, tricks, rules that we need to know about strap-on sex that's going to kind of enhance or help our experience?
Yeah, for sure. I just put up a blog post about some of the myths around strap-on sex, and I think one of the problems is that people think if they don't get it right the first time, that it's not for them.
Right.
But it's a skill. just like any other type of sexy time thing, it's something that you actually have to learn and figure out like what works for your body and what works for the body that you're penetrating.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And you have like a lot of options when it comes to harnesses. So you may just have a harness and be like, this doesn't fit, it slips, or I sweat and then it's gone, or whatever it is.
So try another one.
Try another one.
Don't just give it up.
Yeah. And don't buy the, don't cheap out on a harness. It doesn't make sense to do it. If you're not sure you're into strap-on play, then I would definitely try like a tutorial. Try your friends. Yeah. Or try like a scarf. Like you can actually, there's scarf tutorials for like how you can like tie just a regular like pashmina type thing into like a strap. Yeah. Because I know people don't want to spend like $200 on something.
Especially if you don't know if you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can actually make a pashmina into a strap.
Totally. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yes. I love that.
And then one more big myth is that a lot of strap-on play enthusiasts get involved through pegging. And so pegging is usually referring to someone who doesn't have a penis strapping it on for someone who does have a penis for anal penetration. Mm-hmm. And so lots of people are like, oh, well, like I tried it, but I couldn't get it in. And they tried this like giant dildo and, pretty much like a finger you could like start with. And that would be enough. So they get frustrated. Like their eyes are bigger than their butthole. And it's like, I can't like do it. Yeah, I know all of us. Happens to the best of us. So really starting small and just it doesn't have to be about like these giant dildos. There's very small, beautiful ones that are actually conducive to first time anal. So it's great.
Yeah, I know you want to have a big dick, but you can start.
You can work your way up.
You can work your way up to the big dick. Yeah. And I think something to mention is that something that might make strap-on sex difficult is that there's no like biofeedback on the dick.
Right.
So I can see it being being fumbly or being a little clumsy with it. Because you can't feel where the dick is going because that is not your bio dick,
Totally.
So do you have maybe anything as far as that goes to help people?
Yeah. Actually holding on to the base of the strap-on can give you a better sense of like how to stabilize it. And having a strap-on that's actually really tight against your body, whether it's your foot or your thigh or your pelvis, actually gives you a better connection to the strap-on.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of strap-on science.
Yes.
But you actually can start with something also a little bit shorter. So again, like dildo lengths, like you're not going to start with an 8-incher. It doesn't make sense. You don't actually need that for someone's anus. Like depth doesn't really matter. But you can use it for depending which hole you're interested in, then you can kind of like manipulate. So sometimes the position also matters.
Yeah.
So having someone like on their tummy where you have like access to whatever hole you're interested in can give you a little bit more control.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see things.
Yeah. So a hands and knees on their elbows and knees situation.
Totally.
Might
or
be
flat down, like lying down, like with their stomach touching and their body sort of exposed.
Yeah. Okay. Those are good like beginner positions.
Yeah.
I feel like how about the person receiving? Mm-hmm. Can they help out in any way? And like aiming or angling or?
Yeah. Like a really good way is if the person receiving is comfortable sitting. So if they would like to squat on the strap-on, that can help because then they control the depth, they control like how much, and you can kind of just hold it and help them kind of stabilize it. Yeah, exactly. So you become like a human dildo, basically.
Ooh, hot. Yeah.
I know, right? Also communication. Like it's really important to be like, this is too much. Like you're not taking one for the team. If anything's burning, that means something's tearing. Like, so you really, so we really need to be just communicative as bottoms and being like, like this is enough for now, or I need more of this. And also staying connected with the rest of the body. Like we focus on the hole that we're penetrating, but we forget that there's like breasts and armpits and thighs and like all these other things that we can keep arousal high so the body stays relaxed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.